Right. So we're back for another episode of Creative Retrospective. And my guest for this one is Nigel Atta-Mensah. He is a founder or co-founder of the social media platform. We'll get into it. Newcomer alongside Natalie Narh. If you're a fan of the Vinyl Collective, she was on the Lucky Day episode about a couple of years ago or so. I'm gonna go straight into it with you, Nigel. One thing I'm gonna start off with. So I think I've always wanted to ask you this because I've never actually had you on the Vinyl Collective, and I was looking back at this actually, and I was thinking, oh, like because Nigel's not really a music guy. And then I remembered one of your favorite artists is Joey Badass, right? And I never
Oh,
actually got your opinion
God.
on that. And I was like, oh gosh, yeah, he really could have been in that episode. I don't know why I never kind of had you in mind for that. So just as a light start, in terms of his 2000 album, which I think people know came out, I think it was in 2023 or 2022, I
Yeah.
think it was. Yeah. What was your thoughts behind that album? That's one of your favorite artists, right? So yeah, how did you feel about him kind of coming back 10 years later?
Yeah. I feel like Joey's been chasing 1999
Hmm.
for a long time.
Hmm.
And I just feel like, yeah, it was good. Before the Money is probably my second favorite album.
Okay. Yeah.
1999 is
Hmm.
definitely my favorite. Um, and yeah, 2000 just feels like he kind of was getting back there, but it just didn't hit that same level. That's how I personally feel. But yeah, I think it's gonna be granted given over that period, that like 4 year period, he just decided he's gonna try other stuff like acting, Mr.
Mm.
Robot, and all these other
Yeah.
films and stuff. So naturally, like if you lose that rhythm of like always making music, I just think naturally like you'll kind of still be a bit disconnected, even if you have the ability to, write good raps, good music.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still liked it, but it was just a thing of, okay, cool. Now we see that your attention is divided, Joey. We'll still
Yeah.
support you, but it's not giving, what you used to give. It's not
Yeah,
giving.
it's crazy because I feel the exact same way. By the way, I think 1999 is by far my favorite. And Before the Money is actually, in my opinion, it's kind of low key underrated because I think people see him
Right.
because he was so old school. I think people saw that as like he's going commercial. It's like, no, this is still
Mm.
kind of old school. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think him taking so many years off from like I think it was All American Badass. So it was 2017 to
Mhm.
2022. That whole 5 years was consistently teasing these like EPs and singles, and then just never coming with something. I already had my kind of red flags like, oh, I don't know if he's gonna come with something, but it was serviceable. But yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Nah, it reminds me of when I said Kendrick is retired and people are getting onto me. Like,
Yeah.
listen, if you stop for a couple of years, it's just not gonna be the same. Like
Hmm.
people stick with you because half the time because you're actually relevant to what they're going through and you're saying things that they can resonate with. But yeah, and obviously it's down to him. Like he's obviously multi-talented, super talented. Right
Hmm.
now, he's still living his best life.
Yeah.
Still appearing
Yeah,
in
he really
series.
is living his best life. It's kind of like an
That's what I'm
influencer.
saying. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So
Yeah.
yeah, good on him, man. And it's mad because obviously we've seen him grow from like a young teenager,
Hmm.
and the kind of music that he used to make, and he's kind of still stayed true to that kind of music.
Hmm.
Even like trying not to be signed for such a long time as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean Joey is Joey. And yeah, I think he still does his thing. It's just not clicking as it used to.
Was. So I'm gonna start off with one of my favorite films, right? So one of my favorite films I've watched in the last couple of years is The Prestige. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Uh,
The Prestige.
okay.
Cool. So in this film, so essentially the premise is it will kind of lead on to one of my first questions, kind of tapping into your beginning. So the premise of this film, right, is essentially two magicians, right? And they're very talented at being magicians. But I think at some point they realize the only way to kind of be the best is to defeat one another. So the whole film kind of goes through this constant battle where they're just kind of like, well, like I'm gonna try and one up you with this trick, and you're gonna try and one up you with that trick, and eventually they kind of get to an insane height where it's like it's kind of almost destructive. Obviously, most people you don't want to kind of get to that kind of conclusion. Whereas most people are okay, you know what? Work your talented, I'm talented. Let's just join forces. And I feel like, especially when talking to Natalie on the Lucky Day episode, it does feel like when it kind of starts off with you two kind of being in high school, whatever, it's like two people who are really good at taking photos, who like taking photos, and are trying to be the best at photography. They end up being the ones known for photography, and it's like, oh, you know what? I don't like that you're known for this, and you probably don't like that I'm known for this. But fuck it, let's just come together. Like we also both have a passion for this. Let's just try and do something together, or let's say we're going to do something together in the future. That's where we get to now. Is that? Would you say that's kind of how it started with you guys?
Uh, I don't think quite like that. I
Mm,
think definitely that first half, like,
mm,
yeah, Natalie and I becoming known for being known as the photographers in our
mm,
school, being known
mm.
as the photographers to our friends as well. And I think, to be fair, I think if you know Ghanaians, you know we don't really like that whole like one up kind of thing.
Mhm.
Well, some of them do naturally, but it's
Yeah.
like I feel especially with my friend group, it's like if I see someone who's doing something and I feel like we can collaborate and we can do even better or reach that next level, then
Mhm.
I'm very open to exploring how we do that. And I think naturally, knowing her for that long, it was just kind of inevitable. Because if I was doing a shoot, for instance, or if I had an inquiry and I couldn't do it, I'll pass it on to Natalie and vice versa. Um, and then it just became a thing of like, especially when we graduated from NOTS, we just kept thinking like, we've been out of Ghana for a couple of years now. Of course, we go back in December, but everyone knows that it doesn't really count. Um,
Yeah.
so we're like, cool, 2017 summer, what can we do that will allow us to reconnect with back home, essentially? And we had done a project in London called Infraordinary, and it was kind of like exploring mental health, which was
Okay.
seen as a taboo kind of topic
Mhm.
in our culture. And basically, like putting it right at the forefront of discussions within our friendship group, within our local community back home. And yeah, it was a success. We had a group of people in the UK and London, had a group of people in Ghana. We did a whole photo series and kind of went through their stories and tried to make sure that in addition to their stories, we shared things that helped them come out of those dark and bad places, so that people can be inspired by actually having those discussions. So yeah, it got a lot of attention. And naturally, when something does well, you want to figure out like how do you continue to do well? Um, Trying to find something else, we came across like different music groups, a whole bunch of young people at the time. 2017 to 2018 was like the beginning of the whole Alter, move.
Yes. Mhm.
And when we were in Ghana, like we were seeing this like firsthand. So we were like, we need to document this somehow. And that kind of gave rise to what we did called the Cool Kids Project.
Yes.
So in that, we did like this whole photo series of young, talented, creative Ghanaians, from musicians to artists to fashion designers to just culture, people who are just locked in with the culture. Um, and yeah, from there we mocked up them the images on like fake magazine covers like Vogue, Complex, Vice, stuff like that,
Mhm.
so like putting on Twitter. And back when I was more active on Twitter, these things like especially Natalie as well, these things like actually started kind of going semi-viral to a point where we instantly had people like springing up like accounts on Twitter which copied our name, tried to
Oh, really?
steal
So you already had the
us.
plagiarism stuff? Okay, from
Bro,
earlier,
like
yeah.
literally like in a few days, like we saw Cool Kids of GH kind of thing.
Okay.
Bro,
Wow.
Cool Kids of GH. And I was like, bro, what is going on? Instantly
Mm.
we had to register the domain,
Yeah, do straight all the
check the
things.
IP, bro,
Mhm.
because it's like we're building something. And yeah, so we ended up doing that for a couple of years. We did the photo series, we did a video series, which is still on YouTube.
Yeah, there was two
Um,
editions, right?
yeah. And then
Yeah.
we wanted to do a
Mhm.
third one in 2019, which got pushed because of lockdown into 2020. Um, and then yeah, it was like, how do we expand beyond Ghana and Accra? Like everyone, even the people that we featured in the first series, they actually started getting featured in Vice and Complex, which
Oh,
was
okay.
crazy to
Yeah,
us.
that's
It was
crazy.
like, cool, this concept works. If there are people that are talented enough, and you give them the support that they need to reach that next level, they're actually going to make it. So yeah, we wanted to expand to Lagos and Johannesburg and Nairobi and Kigali. But then we realized that if you don't have like a network already, like the job is like 100 times harder,
Of course, yeah.
especially in places where like there are all these industry gatekeepers, and like it actually takes time for people to trust you,
Mhm.
especially those in that level of the industry that haven't yet quite broken through.
Mhm.
And they're very wary of people coming to take advantage.
Of
So yeah,
course.
that whole story is kind of what eventually led to us collaborating on more of a full-time basis, and the whole inception of Newcomer as well.
Cool. I just want to kind of touch on the plagiarism thing because just remind you a couple funny
Yeah.
things. Because that happened when me and John had the vinyl collective, right? So one of the things that was kind of a thing that was unique to us, we had a playlist called Now and Then or something like that, where we'd add a song from like the past and a song from the present, just to kind of have a balance of the both. And we also had a
Mm.
thing called Spotlight series. So every week we put on like we built a profile of a new artist. The latter's not as unique, fair enough, but now them players, I've never seen anyone do that before. And then after a while, we had people saying, "Oh, weekly plays," and called it something else, right? And it's like, wait, that's basically what the hell we're doing, or literally kind of taking our formats of how we did like episodes and stuff like that. I remember this was so petty, man. Thank God for growth. For like me and John definitely had like a list of like, oh yeah, this person plagiarized us on this, and da-da-da. We had a whole list of all that stuff. And I even had to start making like TikTok accounts. I don't even use TikTok. I started making TikTok accounts just to make sure things don't get taken, because you never know what people. Some people are just
Never
shameless
that.
in that aspect. So I can relate to you on that one. And then
Bro.
again, yeah. And again, you spoke on the Cool Kids project, right? So again, this started in 2017, lasted for about a year or so, right? And you said that the fact that it would like the people that you had featured on were kind of going on to bigger and better things show that it worked. But then essentially, I think for most people who are listening to the episode, you can kind of see the Cool Kids project as like version 0.5 of what will become Newcomer. But what do
Facts.
you feel didn't work with the Cool Kids project that you kind of learned and moved on for one you made Newcomer?
Wait, in fact, let me quickly touch on this plagiarism thing because I don't know if you remember for a couple of weeks ago, probably in January, I
Mhm.
made a video on
Instagram
how
talking
to
about
protect
watermarks, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
protecting your intellectual IP.
Mhm.
The number of times we've had people, even people I know, establish
That's crazy.
platforms and apps and networks which are basically word for word, bar for bar blueprint of Newcomer is crazy. At the same time, it's like because we're all trying to achieve the same goal of connecting the talented Black young creatives that exist on the continent in the diaspora to amazing opportunities. It's like I see it, I just side eye, but I can't really hate because
Yeah.
it is. But yeah, so I just had to make that point because this whole copy and plagiarism thing is crazy. It's so prevalent, but it's just, I guess, part of the story.
Yeah, of
So
course. Yeah.
yeah. So in terms of like things that um we did with the Cool Kids project that didn't quite work, that's actually interesting. No one has ever asked me that. Um Thinking back to it right now, the things that it's like I think that the challenge was always consistency. And it is
Mhm.
with most like anything anyone does nowadays. The
Of
challenge
course.
was always consistency. So because and yeah, if you know me and you know Natalie, we don't like doing mediocre things.
Mhm.
So when we started, it was like it set the bar here. Then the next one, we had to find people that were super interesting and document it in a way that was actually super engaging.
Mhm.
And we found the people, and it even um we actually ended up shooting some of the content in like an actual TV studio
Oh,
in Ghana,
okay. Okay.
with like a whole green screen and a professional setup and everything.
Okay.
Uh, and it's just like raising the bar and trying to be consistent was probably like the biggest challenge for us, which is what made us think, how can we digitize this process so that we can be more consistent without all the manual effort it took us to get the Cool Kids project up and running.
Yeah.
So I remember in March 2020 speaking to Natalie, it was like, bruh, like anything that automates this process, I'm down for. Like make
Mhm.
it a website, make people self sign up. They can do the work necessary to push their profiles and showcase their work. All
Mhm.
we do is facilitate the matching process. And even then, I don't want to be a recruiter. I just want to build the platform and
Yeah.
get to come on and connect with each other. So yeah, like I think that's probably what we learned that actually directly influenced how we built Newcomer in the first place. So yeah, that was a tough question, but I hope I got that
Yeah,
out there.
no, it makes sense. And I think just from my perspective, I think especially with the difference between the Cool Kids project and Newcomer, which we'll get to in a short moment, is that I feel like with the Cool Kids project, you're kind of trying to platform people you thought were cool, people you thought were interesting. Whereas I feel like Newcomer is definitely more focused on like the common person and the individual, which is a lot easier to kind of manage on a day-to-day. Because, for example, if I made an interview series where my only thing is I'm interviewing rappers, after like 5 rappers, I have to go for Stormzy now. Like, do you know what I mean? I have to go for Skepta. Do you know what I mean? There's only so far I can go. Where if it's something about, oh no, it's about talent across a community, and that's my focus, not just talent, then it just makes it a lot easier to kind of pivot when needed. So I think that's just from my perspective. What you say? Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, even in the name, like a lot of it is like just alluding to the whole concept of newcomers,
Mm-hmm.
like people who are new into the industry, who are very open to wanting that help, wanting to find ways to platform themselves and find ways to connect and learn from each other. It definitely drives like a lot of what we do, which is why like a lot of our content pillars, it could have been one of our strategies could have been, let's reach out to all the famous Black creatives that we know and let's
Yeah.
profile them. But they already have millions of followers. They already have all the brand deals. They
Yes.
already have so
Mm-hmm.
many opportunities. Why not, you know, find a couple people who can benefit from actually accessing a platform, which fair enough only has a couple thousand or tens of thousands of people in their audience, but for them it makes a massive difference. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like all these little I guess series of micro impacts
Mm-hmm.
to create a bigger impact for a wider community is definitely where our head is at right
Mm.
now.
Yeah. More
Um,
focusing on the water that makes the tide than the tide itself, in a sense.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think definitely that whole little drops make a mighty ocean vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, like we've been there ourselves, so
Mm-hmm.
we know what it's like when I remember nuts, like I was in second year. And one of the reasons I actually started my whole photography thing in nuts is because I needed money to pay for my deposit for my third year house.
Yeah. It's always some
So,
simple story like that. Yeah.
bro, listen,
Yeah.
like I needed money. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. So my dad, he did well. He took my uni tuition and most of my accommodation. But he was like everything else you sort out yourself. We're not doing this whole student loan thing. So everyone's talking about SFE, this and that.
Okay. Yeah.
Everyone's talking about SFE, this and that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just thinking, bro, how do I make £300 this month?
Yeah.
So yeah, like shout out to Elizabeth and Patience, who were my first ever clients for my photography. I'll never forget. Obviously, as an economics student, we
Mm-hmm.
studied something about pricing, and it
Mm-hmm.
was basically how if the number ends with a nine, like it's more attractive than any other.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
The
whole
psychology
psychology.
of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know how to price my services. So I was like, cool, 8 hours of work, maybe £59. And that's what I did. Um, so yeah, like just I've gone on a mad tangent,
No, it's
but
fine. No, it's fine. Keep
just
going.
just saying all that to say, like there are people and individuals who are going through that creative journey who have no idea what they need to do. A
Mm-hmm.
website on Squarespace costs something like $200 or £200 a year. Sometimes you don't even know where you're going to get that from.
Yes.
Uh, so it's like helping them through newcomer to know the way, what to do, what to expect, who you can learn from, who you can aspire to be like, and also knowing that you can be appreciated at your level, regardless of how great your camera is, or how many followers you have, or
Mm-hmm.
how many likes you get on an average post, or
Mm-hmm.
whether you've collaborated with what's it called, Foot Asylum or whatever. Like
Yeah.
we're just for as many people within our community as possible, and that's what we're really trying to do.
Of course. And again, one person that keeps coming up in this conversation is, of course, your long-time collaborator, Natalie. And again, given that you're both photographers, one thing I'm quite interested in is, especially when starting out, or even maybe in current day, because you're both kind of geared in that way. I know obviously Natalie had more of experience working in the creative industry when she was at Ogilvy in her previous time. But how do you guys divide the kind of responsibility? Because you're both kind of talented in this way. So how do you kind of divide that responsibility? Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely Natalie has more of her creative brain switched on
Mm-hmm.
on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we split it in two ways. Newcomer as the tech platform, I focus more on operations, business, admin, finance,
Mm-hmm.
strategy, um, and then just general management kind of stuff. And then contribute to the creative direction on a more when I need to
Yeah.
basis, as that is like Natalie's bread and butter. She is
Of course.
amazing when it comes to creative direction, strategy, the execution and design,
Mm-hmm.
and letting us know when that thing is out of line or when that font isn't right and
Mm-hmm.
when I haven't used the correct FFCB00 hex code.
Yeah.
I've got that stuck in my
Mm-hmm.
brain now. But like that's for her bread and butter. At the same time, as much as you would think, for instance, for those who know me once again, you would think from a CREC background, like I love the whole event stuff as
Mm-hmm.
well. I can't lie, Natalie is better at that better at that than I am. Mainly because like she's really like tapped in to what it takes to manage the project and get it executed and the different components that go into that. So that's from a newcomer as like a tech platform and a community side. We also have our own like and this is something we've kind of done more on a low-key basis. We also have our own in-house agency called Newcomer Studios. That's where we're able to actually use our photography, videography, and design skills that we used to. In terms of that split, on our most recent shoot, Natalie focused on photography while I focused on videography. So like yeah, I hadn't taken pictures for a long time. I think I don't even remember when I had my last shoot. It's probably like just like family stuff here and
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
But videos is what over the last couple of years I've been even more interested in. Like from making the correct videos to doing the like day in the life or vlog style content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just like started like to gain a lot more interest in video. So yeah, when it comes to that split, Natalie's definitely more of the photographer, especially on the yeah, actual taking photo side. I
Mm-hmm.
like the recording of the videos, but I hate editing.
Yep. I'm in the same bucket as you with that, mate.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I can shoot for 24 hours, but to edit for even
That's gonna add another
a couple
36
hours,
at least. Yeah. Yeah.
it's long, man. So yeah,
Yeah.
like the only thing that recently I've kind of gotten into is editing like short reels. So reels for IG or TikTok that might last like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes max. Like those I'm starting to get faster and better at. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I definitely chip in chip in there.
Yeah, I mean, you say you're not much of a photographer, but when I was doing my research, I can't even find this article anymore. It's completely gone. But you had a bit of
What?
notoriety, yeah, with GUAP,
Yeah,
right? And this was like
yeah.
back in 2017. I was like, okay, cool. And you've also worked with the BBC. So tell me, what was it like, kind of working with these two? Obviously, now GUAP is like almost like a household name within London, within like I guess the Black creative space. Obviously, BBC is it's a no brainer. But yeah, what was it like working along these two gigs?
Yeah, I mean, so the GUAP one was a feature, which was done by someone we went to uni with, and yeah, it was kind of like a profile on myself as a budding photographer. Um, so yeah, I mean, like definitely, I loved and still love photography, and I believe I was good at it,
Mm,
and still am. It's just when I got into my whole corporate thing,
yeah.
it was like I just didn't have time to properly, or I didn't make time because that's you always have time, right?
Hmm.
You just have to prioritize
Hmm.
what you're interested in using that time for. So yeah, I think with the GUAP situation, that was amazing because it was like the first time I was probably featured in like a proper publication. And obviously back then, I don't think people really used Instagram when we were in uni.
Not it's
Um,
not the way they do now.
yeah, not
No,
not the way
yeah.
they use it now. So it was like, bro, like I'm sent on Twitter, I'm posting this link and it's like this massive article and it's like this great publication. So yeah, it was amazing that time. And then in terms of BBC, so yeah, as much as I said the Ellie and Pay shoot was the first shoot I actually got paid for, the BBC opportunity came through my dad's late best friend. His name was Komla Dumont,
Hmm.
and he was this basically this BBC anchor who was doing an interview with Hugh Masekela,
Hmm.
the South African musician. And yeah, it was I think summer of 2012. Yeah, basically Komla Dumont was like, yeah, I have this interview. I've heard you're kind of into photography. You're looking for opportunities. Come down to I think it was North Greenwich or like the
Hmm.
O2 area.
Yeah. Hmm.
Come down to the O2 area. At this time, we have this shoot. Come take some pictures. We'll post it, when we're done. So yeah, I think my dad had told me then I had to quickly get ready, charge everything, blah blah. I was living near Wembley at the time. So it was literally going
Jesus
across
Christ. Yeah.
London.
Oh.
Yeah, took the pictures, was amazing. Like obviously these are two legends in their respective fields and may they rest in peace right now. But yeah, it was like a situation where I took the pictures and he was like, cool, how quickly can you get these to me? Because they needed that like same day. And where I'd been doing it like in school and for friends, it's like, yeah, I can send it to you in 2 weeks kind of
Yeah.
thing. So not only did I have to go back to the other side of London where my laptop and everything was, I had to make sure like these were edited, like not in the usual RT style. Like this is for BBC, so it has to just
Yes.
be correct colors, no
Hmm.
filter, just
Hmm.
everything clean and crisp. But yeah, managed to do it, and eventually they posted it with the interview on the BBC. They used it on MSNBC as well, and
Oh,
a whole bunch
cool.
of other platforms.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, for some reason, like it was completely wiped from the internet.
Yeah. Can't find
So
it. Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't find it anywhere. But I still have the pictures till today. I probably have most of my pictures I took, yeah, from then till now, because I just hoard hoard pictures. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So the next kind of stage of this interview I want to get to is now, of course, the newcomer genesis. So for people who don't know, so I'm just kind of make sure I got the correct date for this. I think so. The wait list for newcomer, because I was, but I think for someone like you, I've kind of been there the whole time, kind of observing.
Yeah.
I remember the wait list for newcomer starts at like, the end of 2021, right? I remember when
Yeah.
this came out. I think it was like December 14th, so like
Yeah.
mid-December. And one thing about this, especially, and I've seen this so many times, and this is gonna leave my question because it's gonna sound like haterism for maybe people who like aren't like tapped in. But when certain initiatives come out, okay, I'll use an example, right? When I think there was that story, I think it was a couple of years ago, of this girl who was like, she was advertising her paintings on Twitter, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, this is really sick. When can I buy it?" Da-da-da. And then she came out like 6 months later, and she was like, "Oh, I haven't sold anything." Like, and it's like, "Oh, but Twitter was telling me it was great." But I think when it comes to certain initiatives like this, right? I think everyone's like, they see that, they look on the face of it, and it's like, "Oh my god, this is a fantastic idea. Like, what, like for black people and da-da-da, and all the retweets are going crazy. Like, oh, this is sick. I love it." But in contrast, like when it came to like translation of the waitlist, how much of that kind of initial buzz of newcomer being a thing kind of translate to people being on the waitlist? Or was it like, was it kind of hard to kind of see the contrast between the two, if there was any?
Yeah, it's funny because as I said, I hoard pictures, I hoard
Okay,
videos.
where's this going?
So I have the video I recorded of myself when the first person that I didn't know signed up to the wait list.
Mm,
Um, and I was just like, bro, like I can't believe this. Like people are actually signing up. Like I don't know this guy.
mm-hmm.
He's signing up. So for the wait list itself, I think we reached something like 2,000 people on the wait list in the first like couple months.
Oh, okay.
Um, and then it slowed down. And it slowed down because like it slowed down because people can only wait for so long.
Yeah.
That's the the
Mm-hmm.
the long and short of it. And naturally, when we were building Newcomer, it just became more complex than we initially imagined
Mm-hmm.
because we realized that we actually need to do this in the right way. Once again, that allows us to be consistent, that allows us to actually address the problem that we're trying to tackle. Yeah, the wait list was definitely an interesting period. I'll probably leave another update regarding waitlists and newcomer to the end of this
Okay.
little cheeky suspense builder there.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, the interest and the momentum actually did translate, which is
Okay,
crazy. Like
that's good.
I remember I'll be going to work and I'll be telling people like, oh, 1,000 people sign up to our wait list. They'll be like, whoa, like, this is so crazy. Because like how does this guy just do this in his spare time when
Hmm.
we're all in like this incredibly busy job?
Hmm.
So yeah, it was definitely interesting. It helped us validate the idea, which is what you need and typically what you use wait lists for, um, and validate the demand as well. But yeah, it did translate. And we're hoping that it will kind of that same structure or that same format will work when we need it to once again.
Of course, and I think, to be honest, I would agree in terms of like the optics of it because this year, like I think it's like you lot did a press one. It's like you lot were stars of like the next June film or something because you guys appear on so many podcasts. You're on Represent. I think there was an article. What was it? It's nice that kind of
Yeah.
article and stuff like that. And I think the this lady, was it Atta-Mensah? She works for like BuzzFeed or something like
Yeah.
that. She had you guys on and all that stuff. Was it kind of overwhelming to be like, oh wow, we're doing this? Like, is that when it started to feel real when people just like start to call you up and say, hey, we want you on? And yeah, how was that kind of press from like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely interesting
Hmm.
because for me personally, I didn't know anything about how we even approach that stuff. So it was a collaboration of Natalie's insight plus an agency we were working with at the time, who basically helped us develop our creative strat and marketing strategy,
Hmm.
blueprint. And then yeah, beyond that, it's like, yeah, we're joining people's podcasts, speaking about our mission, speaking about our progress so far, being recognized in different publications, being featured on people's like lists in terms of platforms, that are helping
Hmm.
the community and stuff. So yeah, I think it was definitely a nice bit of validation.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think at the same time, it's like, especially now, like now that we're in it full time, it's like if it doesn't translate to real signups, real money, real investment, it's great for awareness, but I
Yeah.
think that's where we're at now. We're trying to make
Hmm.
sure that that awareness converts into something meaningful.
Of course.
Um, so yeah, I think back then loved it. Now I want it to actually make a difference to
Hmm.
us and our community and give us that ability to just continue working towards achieving that mission.
Of course. And I think in terms of you saying you're not very familiar with that whole kind of like brand awareness side
Wow.
of things. Yeah. So one thing I was gonna say, because I think one thing I was kind of noticing was kind of like Natalie was on almost everything. It was like, oh, Natalie for newcomer, Natalie for newcomer, da, 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 da. And I feel like it's definitely kind of made a bit of a shift now. Like it kind of reminds me of so when Wu-Tang was starting to go independent, right? They had this kind of set thing of, okay, you know what, Method Man, you're gonna go independent first because you're
Mm.
you're the cool guy, all the girls love you, and
Yeah.
then it'll be so on and so forth. I felt like Natalie was just kind of like the one being the front person for so long. And now to recent, when it comes to these like reels and shorts, you're telling people how to like download the app and you're talking about the watermark stuff. Was that a conscious thing, or was it just that you weren't as interested, or maybe you're just not that type of person? Says, oh, I'm not really like a in the media or want to be in front of a camera type of person. Yeah, or yeah, was it like conscious or unconscious for you guys?
Yeah, I feel like it was just like a bit of both and just me growing up. Because
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I get it.
it's just like, bro, like even LinkedIn is the one I'm really gearing up for because, bro, like I literally wrote a script
Hmm.
for a LinkedIn video in January.
Hmm.
Ask me if that video has been recorded yet. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was definitely and a lot of photographers and videographers will resonate with this. If you're behind the camera, you don't like being in front of the camera. So that's one
Yes.
thing.
Hmm.
I only learned to take pictures, either people taking pictures of me or me taking pictures of myself in like 2021 or something. I don't know. So yeah, so it was like I didn't really care for it. And
Hmm.
then it was that plus the fact that I had my own 9 to 5 that I was kind of yeah, I had my own 9 to 5 that like I was just occupied with and as I said, like that involved a lot of travel, involved a lot of like long days and stuff. So I was not really concerned with video and stuff. But as we kind of got deeper into what newcomer is today,
hmm
um, and Natalie also got busier within her roles as well,
hmm
it just became a situation where I was just like, yeah, I need to do something. I need to like, we need to reach people some way, somehow,
hmm
in a way that I felt worked with what I was looking for from
hmm
our platform, if that makes sense.
hmm
So, like thinking about our platform, I would expect like hints and tips and tricks and updates and information that helps the community and stuff, like really quick stuff that you would expect to see on your social.
Of course, yeah.
And yeah, it reached a point where because we were so busy, we just hadn't been able to dedicate enough time to that. So yeah, towards the end of last year, I was just like, yeah, cool. Let me just jump back on my video, my video making.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that kind of what naturally progressed to me being like with in the videos, me being the face in some of those that content. And yeah, still, I think it's just been a case of what Natalie's been doing has been more behind the scenes, more strat, more direction, more
Mhm.
editing work. While for me, as I said, it's so much easier for me to record, especially since I invested in a new camera. I
Yeah.
think that's probably what probably made the biggest.
Yeah, so it's like a personal investment in it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like bro, like I still have. In fact, let me show you, right?
Mhm. Okay.
I bought all these. I bought this whole.
Jesus. Yeah.
So I got my bonus, and I was like, okay, let me let me invest in this because I know I'm leaving, and I'm not gonna get another bonus. Number
Yeah.
one, um, but I know that this can help us
Mhm.
make a return. This can help us create better content, um,
Mhm.
and I owe it to myself to make that investment and make sure I actually work on making that content.
Of course.
Yeah, once I did that, I think I got that stuff in April, May last year.
Mhm.
And then yeah, that's just when I started making the videos and stuff like that.
Cool. And then one thing again, because you said it was quite busy kind of starting out, there'd be somewhat there was a lot of logistics in terms of that. So we get to July of 22. You're in beta now, people are like signing up to the website and stuff like that. But you also have this another initiative, which kind of brings the connection between TCK and Newcomer together, where you have Common Connects, which was called at the time, and then you also have the Creative Fund. What was so I want to start with the connect for the stars. Like, what was the kind of idea behind that? Well, for people who don't know, it's basically bringing creatives together. It's almost like a showcase, right? And you do it across multiple. At this point, you've done it across multiple countries across the world. But wait, what was the initial idea? Like, what were you trying to achieve with that at the onset?
Yeah, I mean, so that was inspired by an event that we did in Ghana in December 2020,
I think it was December 2022. We're the first one on.
yeah, December
Yeah.
2020.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the whole purpose of Comma Connect was in Ghana in December, everyone just goes for parties. But there are better ways that we can bring creatives together
Mm-hmm.
than just come and party, come and drink, come and do this and that. So
I mean, there was a sip and connect though, to be fair.
yeah, yeah, and that was
Yeah,
what it was.
yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was like, cool, we know that's what
Mm-hmm.
you want to do, but here are a few other things
Yeah.
that probably, like to
Mm-hmm.
consider.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a sip and paint in Ghana. That was the first edition of Comma Connect, where we invited a whole bunch of creatives to actually celebrate them and the work that they've done and the achievements that they've had and made. But the actual activity on the day was there were 8 tables with these long tapestries that span the whole length of the table. And instead of like individual sip and paints, it was like everyone is painting on the same tapestry.
All right, that's
You
quite cool.
you get to like interact with people on your table, and every
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I think it was half an hour or an hour, you switch tables. So
Right.
you kind of come across different people, you start networking, and yeah, people left there with like new logos, new DJs for the events, new all this
Mm-hmm.
and that. And we're
Mm-hmm.
like, cool. So we've done it in Ghana. How do we bring this to London? And that's what we started thinking about when it came to that July event. And naturally we couldn't necessarily do the same thing just because it wouldn't work out in the same way.
Yeah, it's cultural differences, logistic differences, stuff like that, of
Exactly.
course. Yeah.
So we're just thinking, how else can we do this? So we actually were in touch with my runway group, and working
Hmm?
with them, we did the edition of Comma Connect here. I think it's Carnaby Street.
Yes.
Yeah, so they allowed us to use their space. We collaborated with them on that one. And this time for
Was
that,
it the Rhythm and Soul one? Something like that? Rhythm and Soul? Was that a different event?
so that was Amped.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
amped. So for Comma Connect, yeah, we did an exhibition where I think we featured something like 12 artists or something,
Hmm.
plus like a whole bunch more in terms of like digital artists. And we print out their work, had that all up on the walls. We had a showcase as well where we had people doing spoken word, poetry, music, rap. And then we had a workshop as well, which was like trying to help people get into their own creative identity and
Hmm.
identify the things that they're good at, the skills that are dormant and active, and basically
Hmm.
help them unlock, the bits of creativity they keep hidden
Yeah.
because they have to focus on their 9 to 5s.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was the inspiration behind it, and yeah, we did that, and that eventually led to us doing it in Kenya as well.
Cool. And again, the second part that I mentioned was the creative fund. So every month, Newcomer gives some money away for people who like who have a creative idea. So they do like a competition, and I think that the top 3 or so win a cash prize. Just for the pure fun of it, right? Before I get to my serious question, when I was looking up the Cool Kids project, because you did something quite similar, and I think one of your first cash prizes, and again, if you know anything about like the economy of Ghana right now compared to back then. I think the first cash prize you guys had was 100 cedis or something like this before, which if anyone knows now, that's not even 6 pence compared to what it is now. I think at the time it was like 60 pounds. But this one was really funny as a piece of trivia. But
I'm
yeah.
done.
but
We didn't actually have. I don't remember us having a cash prize for the Cool Kids project.
yeah, no, there was one. There was
Really?
yeah, we had a small competition where it was I think it was 100 cedis. It was like I think it was like a one-off thing though. Yeah.
Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair
Mhm.
enough. I completely forgot about that. But yeah, like, listen, at the end of the day, I feel like money is money.
Yeah, I know. It was just a bit of fun. But no,
But
the
I
serious
feel
question,
you.
the serious question I'm
Yeah,
trying to
no, that's
get to
crazy
is
though.
right. And again, I'm not going to bury the lead in this one. I think this is something that has been one of the main, I would say, criticisms. I think it's one of the main things that's brought in regards to Newcomer because again, the slogan for Newcomer is it's a platform for Black creatives, right? So when it comes to the creative funds, I mean, shocker, a Black person's usually going to win that. But then there has been times I've even seen on your Instagram stuff like that where people will be like, well, what about the non-Black African creators,
Yeah.
right? So in terms of that, how, I guess twofold, in terms of the funds and like the connects and stuff like that, I know you're very conscious of this, but how do you kind of address or tackle that criticism that Newcomer receives in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, even in the messaging for newcomer from the onset, we were very careful about choosing to use the word African rather than Black because where we had come from with the whole Cool Kids project at the inception of the newcomer idea, we saw the biggest need for what we're doing on the continent and for people from the continent in the diaspora. Because here in the UK, you have things and places like the London School of Photography, which Natalie and I went to and did a
Mm-hmm.
course there.
Mm-hmm.
But in Ghana, those kind of opportunities either don't exist or are restricted to such few people that it doesn't matter if it existed in the first
Mm-hmm.
place. Here, you literally have like design schools, academies, programs, a whole bunch of stuff. So, Africa and Africans were our biggest and first focus when we started the project. And then naturally, we had to evolve of our own choice
Mm-hmm.
to expand to African and Black creatives.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the same time, as we became more aware of the challenges faced by young Black people here, it just made sense to figure out how we can address those challenges. So yeah, newcomer right now is for
Mm-hmm.
African and Black creatives, everyone that wants to hire, work with, collaborate, connect with them. That's the message. And if you even go into our FAQs, we actually have a question. I'm not black. Can I sign up for newcomer?
Okay.
So the answer to a question like that, and I'll get back to the fund. The answer to a question like that, I'm not black, I'm not African, can I sign up to newcomer? The answer is yes, because as we said, we've created a platform that's centered around African and Black people. But if you're non-Black or non-African and you still want to connect, you still want to tap into the community, you still want to engage with us, you're welcome to. Because that's the only way we can bridge the gap and bring new opportunities that don't exist in our community because we frankly don't have enough of them in the first place.
Of course, yeah.
In terms of the fund itself now, obviously on social, it's very difficult to have some of these more nuanced conversations on like a reply and a
Yes.
comment basis.
Yeah.
So in some instances, when we see that, I'll literally message Natalie like, this is what I'm thinking we should reply. Should we reply? Sometimes it might be, yeah, cool, let's address this. Sometimes it might be, to be fair, they should know. If they identify as African or Black, they should know, right? They should know because we've told you what the eligibility criteria is for the fund. And it's kind of up to you to decide if that fits within what you believe you identify yourself as. And then yeah, like beyond that, we get on average something like 150 applications a month for
Hmm.
that fund. So naturally, most of them, if not 95%, if anything, are
Hmm.
Black or African.
Hmm.
And it just means that there's going to be more of a chance that whoever we select is from that background.
Of course, yeah. So one of the things in terms of starting out your own venture, especially with anyone who's done it, it's good to kind of have your friends. It's good to have your friends tell you, "Oh yeah, what you're doing is great," and all that stuff. But you're like, "Yeah, but what's the? I need a big gig. Do you know what I mean? I need something to kind of validate me in all sense." I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't need anyone to do that, whatever." But I think when it happens, I think everyone always appreciates this, right? So in 2022, I feel like, especially the back end of 2022, I think this is where you guys really kind of take that next step up in terms of that awareness. So the first one being during Black History Month, of like late October,
Yep.
you partner up with Google, right? In terms of
Yep.
having these people, because you said you had a workshop in London in Carnaby Street, but this is taking it to the next level with partnering
Yep.
with Google for the Black History Month event. And I remember even seeing you tweet about this, and it seemed like a really heartfelt moment for you. Like, oh wow, like newcomer is here. Like my logo is next to Google's logo, for
Yeah.
example. And then the second thing, if that's not enough, you also featured on TV in Ghana in December with Natalie, kind of talking all
Yeah.
things newcomer. I think it was like City TV or something like that in
Yeah.
Accra, which is one of the biggest stations in Accra, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, God,
Yeah.
it kind of a year after starting this thing, it might feel a bit so. This felt like, okay, wow, we're here, like we like. How did that feel for you?
Yeah, no, I think the Google one especially was like, as you say, like Google,
Yeah,
like
so it's the
Google is
biggest,
Google. Like,
yeah.
yeah, is literally one of the biggest companies in the world. So when we partnered with this other organization called Sogidi,
Mhm,
and yeah, we were brought on to kind of help them curate the event for the Black Googler Network Black History Month
mhm,
celebration that October. And yeah, it was amazing, man. It was
mhm,
just like, bro, I can't believe like an organization like this is is open to working with a platform and a community that just kind of really started up a year ago that
mhm,
only at the time had a few thousand people. Um, but I think the great thing was that it validated once again what we set out to achieve. And this was inspired by all the things I've said about the Cool Kids project. There are so many talented people that all they need is just a platform or opportunity and they'll kill it. They'll absolutely smash it out of the park. And that's exactly what happened. So we had people who were exhibiting their work, who were based in Lagos, based in Accra, based in London, based all around the world. Some of them was the first time they had actually seen their work printed
mhm,
out, being exhibited at any kind of location. And it was just a proud moment to know that the platform that we built facilitated that. Beyond that, it was like the performances. I think Shay's Universe,
mhm.
Adekunle Gold,
Yeah.
it's just like crazy names, right? So yeah, it was crazy. And like sitting there, like I came there after work. And I was just like, bro, like I just can't believe that it's a newcomer, So Giddy production.
Hmm.
And yeah, I took that picture of the brochure and I tweeted it. I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, this is crazy. So that was the Google thing. The City TV situation now. So for full transparency, my dad runs City TV.
Okay,
So
fair.
that
Mhm.
helped us get the access. But at the same time, as you said, it's really like prime time TV back home
Mhm.
in Accra and Ghana. So it was important that we're not coming to talk about nonsense. It's not just your son's thing that you're
Yeah,
putting.
yeah, honestly, yeah.
Yeah. So it was actually at the same studio that we filmed the Cool Kids Project stuff,
Okay,
um,
cool. So very full
which
circle moment then.
exactly,
Hmm.
massively full circle moment. It was great because people really could resonate with what we were saying. There are a lot of creative people who don't get to utilize their skills because they don't have a platform to show it. They don't know how to turn that creative skill into like a business or viable
Hmm.
opportunity for
Hmm.
themselves. And yeah, it was just kind of telling people about our mission, our story so far, and enrolling more people to join the journey. So yeah, it was really cool. Because we had been on TV for that first project I was talking about in
Hmm.
Infraordinary, I kind of got used to the whole TV thing, and
Yeah.
with my dad like works there and stuff, and it wasn't like wow, it's TV.
Oh,
But
oh, yeah. I'm not new to this. I'm true to this.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, low
yeah, I
key,
get it. I
but at the
understand.
same
Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time though, it was pretty cool.
Hmm.
Because like even now, as I'm once again reaching out to people that we would like to either list jobs or collaborate with on newcomer work, some of them recognize us from that, and it's like that validation that they needed or that validation that they need to go on and proceed with, doing whatever they need to do with us.
Cool. And again, and so we move on to 2023, and this is finally where. So again, before this, Newcomer is kind of self-run, self-owned, but now you're getting to the point where it's more like we're getting more to the business side of things. So I think you now get picked up. Well, you get some funding from SFC Capital UK or something like that, and the UK part is a very important part. I'm going to touch on in a second. So this made public news. This was on like Yahoo Finance. I think it was also on a couple other like outlets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a huge win for you guys because this means now that you could go independent, you can work for you can be self-employed and stuff like that. But my question to you is for platform that's kind of focused around African and Black creators first, was there any consideration to go for startups in Africa first before kind of going with the UK? What was that conversation like? Or was it just like, you know what, it's just difficult to get funding in general. We'll kind of take what we can get.
You know, if you know me, I feel like you know that I am very I love proving people wrong. I love being
Yeah.
like, energized by
Hmm.
someone saying, "Oh, you can't do this or this and this and that." So naturally, given our African focus and Black focus,
Hmm.
we did first approach, VCs and startup groups and angel
Hmm.
groups that were very much focused on Africa. One of them I remember, I'll never forget this. One of them was like, we went through, I think, like a three-stage process, and we got to an interview stage, and they were like, yeah, what you're doing is too hard. So we don't
The
see
fuck?
how this will really work.
Okay.
So at that stage, it was like a 20K investment. And we were like, fair enough. We'll kind of go back and work on it and blah blah. But I'll never forget. How can you tell me this thing is too hard? Of course it's hard. It's a massive problem. It's
That's,
gonna be hard.
that's a crazy answer. Not like it's
Yeah,
too
we were like,
complex or is it
bro,
just
it's
too
too
hard?
hard. It's
Why are you
too
working
hard.
so hard, mate? Like,
It's too
eh.
hard. So that was one thing.
Hmm.
Another thing, I remember it was this other one was from this Nigerian lady. Um, And yeah, she just gave us so many reasons why a newcomer wouldn't work, why we wouldn't make enough money to
Hmm.
sustain it. And this was the period where between 2022 and 2023, where a lot of African fintechs were raising at massive valuations, and
Yeah.
fintech was the whole wave.
Yes.
Like if you're
Yes.
fintech, we've seen what happened with Dash, we've seen what happened with all these other fintechs that raise millions of dollars. But if you don't have the right fundamentals, even if you're making money, like, you know what happens. It fizzles out.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's a whole situation. So we had to widen the net, and we had actually gotten close to securing the funding in August 2022, but I had some stuff I just needed to finish at my current like job, or my previous job now. And I was just like, bruh, like this is great, but I'm not ready to go in full time. And that was one of the conditions of raising the investment. Both
Right.
founders have
Okay.
to be in it full time, because it's like, fair enough. If I'm gonna give you your money, if I'm gonna give you all this money, like you can't still
Mm.
be getting paid like by some other guy, and then you're
Yes.
doing like,
Mm-hmm.
so luckily through two of my friends actually, we raised a family and friends round, which allowed us to kind of carry on into 2023. And as we kind of got close to the end of that runway, we're able to get this investment from SFC.
Mm-hmm.
But like on a wider note, we would have loved to raise from, like an African firm, African VC,
Mm-hmm.
Africa focused angel group. And we talked to so many people, bro. Like the number of people you get introduced to, let's book a call, let's do this. We talked to one guy for like 4 months, and every call was like, oh, I love this, but I need this. Then we'll provide that information. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I remember there was one time where we're supposed to have a series of calls. He was supposed to bring his partner, like his business partner on, and there was always some issue.
Oh
Either one
gosh,
time
yeah.
he had to quickly go and help his mom with something and drive her to something. Another time he had to quickly fly out, bro. So there are so many
Yeah.
people from our community that just make the process more difficult than it should be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When we reached back out to SFC from start to finish, I think the process took 3 weeks.
Oh, super
From
quick then.
first
Yeah.
follow-up email to money in the account, 3 weeks.
Damn.
So
Yeah.
if that's how it should be, and it allows us to, fulfill the mission, then that's just the decision that we had to take.
Course. And for people listening who think that's like one of the conditions they said in terms of having to quit your jobs, and anyone who thinks that's a bit too much, you gotta think of it from this way, right? If you're putting money towards something, the number one people who need to believe in it are the people who created it, right? Like there's no other, there can't be anyone secondary, anyone primary to those two people. So having to work full time makes sense in terms of you will invest 100% of your time to making sure our investment kind of comes solid at some point. So that can make some sweet sense. And I think the thing you mentioned about the guy always having something up, it kind of reminds me of like, when a guy who's kind of like struggling to commit because like he has an option. He's like, oh, but I'll keep you there. You know what I mean? And like I'll kind of
Facts,
tap in. I
yo.
think it's exactly like that, right? I think it's good that you kind of like identify that and kind of moved on. I mean, personally, I think fun, like I think you guys have mentioned this before. Maybe I'm imagining it, but you can also spin it the other way, right? In terms of you're taking money from a country that wouldn't necessarily even put money within this community and moving it towards that economy. So like a Robin Hood approach, so to speak. So I think either way you can spin it, it's a net positive, right? So yeah.
Yeah, facts,
Mm,
100%. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's like some of our community is based here in the UK,
mm-hmm,
and they benefit from us being able to provide the platform and the services that we do. So many people from the fund have won it from London. So many people on Newcomer live in London. They come to our events. They've found new opportunities through us. Some of the first companies and companies that still do list on the platform today are London-based startups, London-based organizations that are looking for talent. So it made sense for them as well.
mm-hmm.
And even considering some of the more geopolitical reasons for creating Newcomer,
Yeah.
and with my whole economics hat on, um, it's basically based on the fact that we have and will have the youngest and largest youthful demographic in the world on the African continent in the diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not creating enough jobs on the continent to provide for this growing population. So
Yeah.
naturally, you need targeted efforts to connect these young people with opportunities. Otherwise, we've seen what can happen when
Yeah.
young people don't find opportunities. So from an investor perspective, it's like a no-brainer. It's like these people are plugging that gap. They're providing that solution. If we fund this and it clicks,
Mm-hmm.
it's a massive opportunity. And
Yeah.
and that's like how we sold it as well.
Okay, cool. And moving forward, things have kind of just kind of chugged on as a regular startup would sell. So now you have like the app. I think you will get to a point eventually where people can kind of like put postings within the app and stuff like that. I don't know if that's happened already, but talk to me more about the struggles between. Cause I think what people don't know, like getting an app out there in the world is it's a task. Like I think one of the reasons why Apple is like anyone can make an app is because it's fucking hard. So it's like if someone's gonna take the burden off them, like they don't really give a fuck. They're like, okay, cool, go ahead and do it. You're gonna make us money anyways by being on our platform. Tell me about the struggles of like now. Obviously, now you have the funding to now do something as involved as an app, not just a little. Oh, we're making what was that game that everyone was playing? Not that space game. You know what I'm talking about? I can't remember what the game was. Yeah, not that. You're making a
Flappy
full on.
Bird.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
that. It's a full on app. It has to work as seamlessly as any other app I use because that's my expectation on that stuff. Well, yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, we had actually considered that when we started, pardon me, and we had actually considered that when we started in 2020, whether we build an app or a website. And one of the considerations was anyone with internet can access the website, but you need a smartphone to access the app. That was one of the things. And also considering our audience, it just made more sense.
Yeah.
That way we could also kind of establish more of like a brand presence on a website and blah, blah. But fast forward to, what was it, October 2023, when we went to Nairobi, or early November 2023, went to Nairobi. We had our Comma Connect event there, and that was like the celebration of our app launch. That app was, it's so crazy because we worked with an external developer agency on that app to try and get it out in time. And we said, I think it was something like 5th November was the deadline. And you have to get this out 5th November, either 5th November or 5th October. You have to get this out by then. There is no excuse for blah, blah. So they were doing some of our other features, which we kind of have under wraps right now, but they should be coming public in the next couple of months. And we just shift all our efforts to that. And basically in the space of like 2 months, we went from design to development to implementation to testing and release in that period. So yeah, building an app was probably one of the craziest periods at Newcomer. Because as you said, of course, Apple allows you and the Google Play Store allows you to do these things, but at the same time, they have such a high standard that like you'll submit something to the Play Store, or sorry, Play Store is actually easier. That's less of a problem.
Yeah.
The App Store, bro, they need people to have a login so that they can test it themselves. And it's like if you don't have certain things, they deny the application. And it can take days, it can take hours, it can take weeks, it takes months. And just balancing all of these things was like, bruh, like we're doing that. I'm planning an event in
Yeah,
Kenya.
absolutely insane. Yeah.
Who forced us, really? Like, who forced us?
And this is on top of having a whole like amped event in London like a few weeks
Yeah,
before.
exactly. So we had an event before, and I was still working full time. So it was like, yeah, who forced us? But at the same time, it was just so great that finally, like, people could pick up their phone, go onto the Newcomer app, because right now we have something like 75% of our users using Newcomer on their phones.
Okay.
And one of our biggest challenges, which we're actively trying to address, is allowing people who use Newcomer on the mobile to benefit from and use our custom portfolio builder. So that's a feature that we haven't seen on many other platforms, let alone job boards. And right now you can only use that on the web app. So we're building that and trying to fix that. But yeah, the app was a whole different stage. We've kind of been a bit quiet in terms of app promotion just because we're actually in the phase of a complete rewrite of the whole site.
Yeah.
And as I said, once again, this speaks to just our desire to constantly level up. And I think you even touched on it, like just the expectations and the community, like something that people who use these things every day, trying to make something that they actually want to use, especially for creators who are massively picky.
Yes.
And like, because it's like they're putting so much effort into their work, they can't display it on a platform that is dead. Like it doesn't really have the right UI, it doesn't really have the right feel and
Or
look,
it's not
and
sleek and you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
you
not
understand,
quick,
like
yeah, all these things.
exactly.
Hmm.
So all of that makes such a difference, and we had to consider that. But I think the team did a massive job in getting it out the way they did. And yeah, now it's just constantly like reiterating, updating, pushing fixes, things that people don't even notice half the time. And because
Hmm.
Natalie and I do the customer service ourselves, we hear directly from users
But
and we get,
still,
yeah, 100%.
Jesus, oh,
Yeah, so we're responding to people's Instagrams like or messages or emails like, oh, this button doesn't show for me, or
okay, yeah.
I can't access this page, or I can't sign up, or I can't apply, blah blah. And
Hmm.
instantly back on with our dev team, we get these fixes sorted out, pushed, and then back onto the next thing.
So in 2021, I think this is when you were on one of the shows. I think it was Mo Chunks's or something like that. Can't remember. One of your quotes then was, "If you start, the opportunities will come." So 3 years from now, later, Nigel, I'm going to ask you, what advice would you give to a different piece of advice, of course, would you give to people kind of starting out their own ventures? It could be a creative venture, it could be a business venture. What advice would you give to them?
Right. I think the maddest thing for me has been there are so many things that you don't realize you don't even know before you start these things.
Hmm.
Like I was talking to one of my boys yesterday. He's recently started his own consulting practice, and he wanted to try and create some user personas for potential clients that you can reach out to. And I was explaining like the perspective of a startup founder. It's those three categories: things that you know, things that you don't know, and things that you don't even know you should have known in the first place.
Hmm.
And I think that the main bit of advice there is just any idea you have, any venture that you want to pursue, anything that you want to do, especially if you want to take it seriously, try and break it down into those three things and try and do as much research on the last two, because those are the things that will probably try and trip you up.
Right, of
The better you
course.
get at identifying the gaps, the easier the whole process becomes for you.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think like that'll probably be like the new advice I would give to people right now. Because it's like, bro, like right now, I've come from a banking and creative media background. People are talking to me about FPS submission, EPS submission. I was like, what the hell is this? You're talking
Yeah.
about payroll stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like if you don't learn it, you're gonna have to pay someone to do it. And if you
Yes.
don't do it, you'll get fined or your business will
Yeah.
have to shut down. So
Hmm.
you have to know these things
Hmm.
in order to really succeed. And of course, it might not be FPS or EPS submissions in whatever endeavor that this person is trying to pursue, but it might be something else, right?
Yeah.
So now it's just trying to fill those two gaps of the things I know I don't know, the things I don't even know I should know. I'm just listening to a lot of audiobooks because I reading is because I'm always like looking at screen, like
Yeah.
doing stuff. I can't read and do what I need to do for
Yes.
work.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
audiobooks are my go-to and obviously on my commute and stuff. And then just talking to a lot more people about like what I'm doing, trying to learn about what they're doing. Because naturally, as we have these conversations, they'll mention something, and I'll be like, "Raw, like, I didn't even know that I should have structured this in this way or
Yeah.
thought about this in
Hmm.
that way."
Hmm.
So yeah, that's definitely the advice. Break down whatever you want to do into those three segments. What you know, what you don't know, what you don't even know you should have known. And that'll be empty in the beginning, but you can start to fill it up and then address those challenging areas, as you go along.
Of course. Again, so we're in the last leg of our interview. So one thing I want to touch on that you mentioned just a little bit, but was the CREC collective, right? This has been going on for a very long time. I'll say probably since
Yeah.
2017 or maybe 2015, so to speak.
Yeah.
And again, for those who don't know, so Brother Nay or and Karim, who released an EP a couple weeks ago, they're part of this collective, right? So in terms of like they had a song together, CCC, which you shot for actually
Yeah.
all those years back. But one thing I've actually never really understood is in the nicest way, it's like, okay, what is the initiative behind the CREC Collective? Because when I think of what a cool kids project is, this gives me more of a feel of cool kids chilling and just kind of like making content than the actual cool kids project. So yeah, explain more about what about the CREC initiative.
Yeah, I think what helps is let me actually okay. So the CREC was just a group of us from our uni house
Mm-hmm.
who once again realized that we're all doing really cool stuff. Let's come together and do this collectively. The name itself came from the street that we lived on, Gregory Avenue. And the bit of the G, this bit was scratched out, so it became
Oh.
Crekery. So one of our boys who's now part of the CREC was he was like, oh, Crekery, the CREC. And then it just caught on.
Right.
So
Yeah.
everything we did, we just started saying, yeah, it's the CREC. This is the CREC. I'm going to the CREC, blah, blah. And yeah, that's how the name came about. But what the CREC is and has been for the last couple of years, especially since like third year uni, when we started doing our events and
Mm-hmm.
stuff,
Yeah.
the CREC is a multimedia production and events company. And our whole thing is creative connection. Once again, I feel like this whole
Of
thing
course.
has been in my DNA,
Yeah.
and it was a different way it manifested in that sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, the CREC, just a group of guys, me, brother Nay, TY, who's listen, TY is but for me, TY is the one who's actually living the biggest CREC life right now. This guy
Right.
studied
Mm-hmm.
engineering in
Mm-hmm.
uni, and now he runs studios. He does equipment leasing for most of Lagos's creatives,
Oh
most of
wow.
Nigeria's
Okay.
creatives.
Nice.
He's
Mm-hmm.
been doing that consistently. He's run a studio, moved on, and set up another studio. He's absolutely killing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like we kind of naturally went in our own ways and kind of for a while kind of focused on establishing ourselves. But yeah, CREC forever, as we say.
Of
Yeah.
course. Cool. So my final question for you is what is next for Nigel and Newcomer in moving forward?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this earlier on,
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about wait lists.
Yes.
And I mentioned that we're doing a complete rewrite of the site.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for those who've actually kind of prodded on the site for a while now, you'll realize that we had a whole bunch of features that it was like a coming soon, we're working on this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, there's only so long people wait.
Yeah.
So part of the next stage for us is ensuring that we deliver every single feature we've told people we're gonna give them since that launch in December 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, especially towards the summer months of this year, here right now towards the summer months of this year, we are going to announce a newcomer, a complete rewrite, rebrand, refresh, however you want to put it,
Okay.
which delivers as many of these features in a more sleek, efficient, functional way that achieves that whole ethos of I come here and I get paid to be myself. Um, that's definitely the focus. And in order to drive that and sustain that, we're entering our seed round as well.
Mm-hmm.
So looking for a larger sum of money because we want to make a bigger and a larger impact. And we think that bringing on the right investors, the right partners, and right clients as well,
Mm-hmm.
through our sales efforts today, will help us achieve that. So those are the two things that are really coming up next for me in relation to newcomer. And beyond that, for those who were at the last Mansion Madness, uh,
Yeah.
there's still things, coming from the CREC. I think we're definitely starting to find that momentum again. So we had an event last Friday
Mm-hmm.
for the album release party of Belly
Yeah.
of the East. So obviously Karim is what we call a CREC affiliate.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
everyone from the CREC is the core bunch that lived in that Nuts house. But we've grown and had so many people who've joined that journey that they are still very much part of the CREC. So yeah, we're definitely trying to get back into events, trying to get back into production, trying to work with people. I mean, even one of the things that we've been looking at for our last event for Mansion Madness, we did these promo videos.
Hmm.
And when I saw the promo video for Recess at Drum Sheds, I was like, bro, I need to find
Stuff
a way to
over.
contact Jojo
Yeah.
because I was like, bro, like we can do this stuff for you.
Yeah.
Do this stuff,
Ah, right. Okay. The
can
other
do
way.
this
Okay.
stuff to the
Yeah.
same level. We can do this
Hmm.
and level up even. So
Hmm.
yeah, so on the correct side, that's how things are looking as well.
Oh, it's interesting stuff. So at the end of this interview, Nigel, is there any final message you have? Is there anyone you want to shout out or say hello to?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to the whole newcomer team, from Natalie to Berima, our CTO, to Austin, our dev in Nigeria, to Desmond, our dev in Accra. Shout out to everyone who's part of the comma community, everyone who's signed up and made newcomer their home, to share their work, connect with people, find opportunities for themselves. Shout out to the businesses that have trusted us and use Newcomer as a platform to find the talent that they've ended up hiring and working
Hmm.
with. Um, and yeah, I think just shout out to everyone else that's just been supporting, even if from the sidelines, whether you've liked the post or commented or reshared or shared to your story or told a friend, like it makes such a massive difference. Makes such a massive difference. Even doing stuff like this, obviously for you as well, like obviously, as you said, you followed the journey, you've been part of the journey as well.
Hmm.
So shout out to you, shout out to your platform as well. And yeah, I'm just massively appreciative of everyone's contributions to our story. Whether they're on the good side and being supportive or the ones that have said what we're doing is too hard. It fuels me and motivates me all in the same way. So yeah, shout out to everyone who keeps, playing their role in some way, shape, or form.
Of course. Midase.
I'm done. I'm so done. I'm so done. Yeah, nah, that's dope, man.